I mean, do you really take it seriously that Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus rose from the dead, Jesus was born of a virgin, and that's part of Christianity. You go to church now, and you listen to the vicar, and do you kind of notice what a lot of nonsense he talks?
Welcome back to another episode of Adam's Fall. In this episode, I'm going to be revealing a little bit about my personal story. I left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints about 10 years ago, and while I maintained my membership, I lost my faith and belief in God, in Jesus, and became an agnostic atheist for many years. And it was during my transition into atheism that I came across the new atheists, which include Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and Daniel Dennett, along with many other online atheist personalities. But after about 10 years of being in these atheist waters, I decided to return to faith, and specifically the LDS Christian faith. In my journey, I tried to find, quote, the objective truth, but realized that there are many forms of truth, and propositional truth, which is based on statements, is only one of these. I also discovered that finding the objective truth is not really possible for humans, as there's just too much information for us to comprehend. We don't see all of reality. We only see what is useful, what is meaningful. And as I lived in the atheist space for many years, what I did encounter was just nihilism and despair and meaninglessness. The atheist communities really don't provide an empowering worldview that can sustain many people. It certainly couldn't sustain me after many years. And so I wandered through dark, nihilistic forests. In the end, my decision to return to the LDS faith wasn't actually based on a return to the previous beliefs in the same way I had before I left, as that was no longer possible. But rather returning, or, quote, reconstruction for me, involved reconnecting with the person of Christ and with transcendent meaning, purpose, religious community, and values that I saw in those communities like love and goodness, beauty, and truth. And interestingly, when I did this, my life started to improve. My mental and physical health improved. I lost a bunch of weight. My energy levels and outlook improved. I became less focused on my problems and more focused on a higher eternal view. I started engaging more with my family, and I'm not sure I've become a better father, debatable, but I hope so. I became less prone to indulging in vices. My approach, however, was not focused on trying to relitigate previous grievances or finding new apologetics for all the historical truth claims made by either Christianity or the LDS faith, but was a sort of pragmatism more along the lines of why Ayaan Hirsi Ali, another prominent public atheist, converted to, surprisingly, Christianity. And that is because it just works. I asked the following question: aren't the ways in which trusting Christ changes one's life something you can actually, truly testify to? I dare say that Ali's testimony, whose life has been saved by Christ, is far stronger for me than someone reciting propositional truth statements. Because there is truth in the fruits, there are truth in the practices, there are truth in the beauty, there are truth in the ways your life improves if you follow the Christian path. So it is with that in mind that I want to review a nice discussion between Richard Dawkins and Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who are friends and colleagues, about her decision to convert to Christianity, which Richard Dawkins was surprised by. I was once on Dawkins' side, and now I'm on Ali's side. So let's take a look at this video on the Unheard channel and see about their conversation about her conversion and Dawkins' challenge to her conversion.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Ayaan. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think we have to start with the extraordinary few months you've just had. For those people who haven't been following it, just tell us the story how such a famous atheist, someone who had rejected religion, came to call herself a Christian.
Oh. So I want to say that I didn't, like many people who come to faith, I didn't see big banging lights, and I didn't have any of those spectacular experiences that some people share. I wish I did, but I didn't.
And I would also say that I did not return to the LDS faith because I had some extraordinary experience. I did not see an angel or see Jesus or see God. I did not have a vision or anything that I could conclusively point to other than what I would call some breadcrumbs that helped me along the way, pragmatic fruits, beauty, goodness, and truth that I found in the religion, but from a different perspective.
I had a personal crisis. I lived for about a decade with intense depression and anxiety, self-loathing. I hit rock bottom. I went to a place where I actually didn't want to live anymore, but wasn't brave enough to take my own life. And so I was self-medicating. I had, over a long period of time, seen psychiatrists, other doctors. I was trying to understand my condition and trying to treat it with the help of pure evidence-based science.
Now, for me, I didn't quite hit, quote, rock bottom in the same way I would say as Ayaan Hirsi Ali, although there were points in my story where I did feel similarly. It was more just a cumulative experience after years of trying a different path and finding the fruits of that were terrible, were destructive. And it was only after years of being humbled that I was able to have the courage to look at the faith that I had once abandoned.
And in January, February of last year, I saw one therapist who said, perhaps it's something else that you have, and she described it as spiritual bankruptcy. And that resonated with me, and having reached a place where I had absolutely nothing to lose, I prayed, and I prayed desperately. And for me, that was a turning point. And what happened after that is a miracle in its own right. I feel connected to something higher and greater than myself. I feel my zest for life is back.
I would also say, as I reconnected back to my religion, going to church, discovering the beauty and depth in LDS scriptures, in traditional Christian scripture, that I did connect to something beyond myself. It took me outside of myself. Often when you're on a path of discovery, quote, deconstructing religion, you become self-obsessed, self-focused. It's all about you. And you kind of narrow down into this very destructive psychological path. And reconnecting with Christianity and Christian practices like prayer and scripture and service and just getting outside of the house and doing something that connects me with other people, I also felt connected and alive and much better in many ways.
And that experience has filled me with humility, I have to say. And it is something that's very subjective. It's extremely difficult to explain. I'm trying to work, get into the details, the granular details of how I got there in a book, but that is a short, that's the shortest story that I can tell.
Let's go to Richard Dawkins' reaction, because
that's a moving personal story, but to call yourself a Christian is a bit different. I mean, a Christian has to believe in something, and you go to church now, and you listen to the vicar, and you kind of notice what a lot of nonsense he talks.
So Richard Dawkins gets a little laugh there. Of course, he believes that Christianity is a fairy tale. It is not objectively true. Of course, how does Richard Dawkins know this? There's no way for him to know if Christianity is true or false. He wasn't present during the resurrection or life and birth of Jesus, nor am I. Neither of us can totally prove objectively through our own direct experience about the events that are reported in the Bible or elsewhere. But is that the only kind of truth there is? Is there truth that comes from trying the experiment of Christianity and the LDS faith? I think that's what Ayaan Hirsi Ali is going to talk about. Her personal experience is more transcendent than some truth statements.
I mean, do you really take it seriously that Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus rose from the dead, Jesus was born of a virgin, and that's part of Christianity?
So I think because you, and I know you very well, we've been friends for a long time, and in fact, in some ways, I think of you as a mentor. I would say you're coming at this from a place of there is nothing. And what has happened to me is I think I have accepted there is something. And when you accept that there is something, and there is a powerful entity, for me, the God that turned me around, I think what the vicar is saying no longer sounds nonsensical. It makes a great deal of sense. And not only does it make a great deal of sense, it's also layered with the wisdom of millennia. And so, like you, I did mock faith in general, and probably Christianity in particular, but I don't do that anymore. And again, that is where the humility comes into it, is it doesn't seem, in 2024, after I went through that experience, it doesn't seem nonsensical to me, and I don't mock it. I think I've come down to my knees to say, perhaps those people who've always had faith have something that we who lost faith don't have.
So I concur with Ayaan Hirsi Ali. It is her transformative experience that has changed her. She now sees that after her life has changed, that the belief in Jesus and these supposed fairy tales are true for her. And she's been humbled by the transformation in her life. So is not that true? Isn't her personal testimony, as I mentioned earlier, of the transformational power of Christ more true than some place names or whether we can prove this or that? It has made a real difference in her life, and the same is true for me. And now she can see with new eyes and with a new heart. And Richard Dawkins wants to prove everything in scientific detail about Christianity, as if we can go back in time and do such an experiment. The experiment that Ali tried is one that is true.
Like the woman who told me, well, you've tried everything and you've lost hope, you've lost faith. Try it, pray. I think just in that one word, there is so much wisdom, and that it's. I am stuttering and I'm staggering to say. I'm just trying to say no. It's not stupid. It's in fact it's clever and it's wise.
So you believe in some kind of higher power, which is comforting you, and you're obviously reacting from an Islamic past, and I know that from what you've written that part of what you feel is that Christianity is a bulwark against Islam, which is a quite separate thing from what you've been now saying, but you stand by that. I mean, that's part of what you're saying, and I accept that, and I support that. That's why I've called you a political Christian. But from what you've just said, it sounds as though you're more than just a political Christian. I mean, it sounds as though you actually believe it.
So what is your response to those specific questions of Richard? When the vicar is saying that Jesus is the Son of God literally, not figuratively, how do you square that with your highly trained rational mind?
Well, it is, again, different planes of perception. So I choose to accept Jesus Christ, the teachings of Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus Christ. I choose to accept that. So on the personal level, the rewards I get, very subjective again, but mine and through choice.
So I like Ollie's statement about what her therapist said, just try it. I've tried both. I've tried agnosticism, atheism. I've ventured into Eastern traditions. I come from a medical science background. I've tried secular humanism. I've tried lots of different approaches myself. And frankly, going back to the LDS faith has been more transformative for me by far than any of these other forays I have made. So is that not testifying of some underlying truth? In my opinion, yes. And it took me a long time to be humble enough to stand outside Richard Dawkins' viewpoint, which I also had for many years. And I had also not taken seriously the wisdom of thousands of years of religious texts. And when I re-engaged with those religious texts and the LDS scriptures, I found there was so much depth, so much psychological depth. I found amazing truth and beauty buried in the practices, the singing, the community. These are full of truth, truths that you will not find when you're alone. You can't possibly uncover all things that have already been uncovered on your own. You can't possibly build them all up from scratch. These things have been honed over thousands of years. And I'm thankful, even though I left the LDS faith as an active member, I kept doing many of the things that I did as an active member. I didn't start drinking or smoking. I didn't get a bunch of tattoos. And my marriage is still intact, although it was a struggle, especially on my wife's part, for many years. That I am thankful for. So now, as I've come back, I'm probably going to tell more of my story in a complete fashion in other episodes. But like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I'm thankful for the wisdom in these traditions, but also the transformative potential of being a Christian. And in my particular case, I just felt home in my LDS tradition. I look forward to your comments and suggestions, and until next time.